Okay, today I'm going to introduce you to the percent proportion and how to use it to find the percent of a number. Okay, last week we learned how to use percent bar models to help find percent of a number, and previously we used proportions to find missing proportional amounts. So the percent proportion is kind of a combination of the two. We're actually going to use a proportion to find the percent of a number, but it's a special proportion, and we call it the percent proportion. So go ahead and write down this proportion right here in your notes. This is the percent proportion. And the percent proportion is where the first ratio represents the part to whole, and then the second ratio represents your percent, where it's the percent that you know out of 100. When setting up your percent proportion, this will always be 100. Why? Because percent's out of 100. So if we want to find 30% of 90, we begin by setting up the percent proportion and fill in the numbers that we know. The first thing that we're told is that it's 30%. So over here in the 30%, or in the percent field, we will type 30%. You don't need to put the percent symbol, just the number will work. The same thing for the 100%, you don't have to have the percent symbol. Okay, now we need to fill out our first ratio, which is the part to whole. The only other number we're given is 90. We want to know what is 30% of the 90. Well, the 30% represents the part, and we're not told what that is. That's what we're trying to find. So this is your unknown. We're looking for the part, which means we're going to use a variable n to represent the unknown part. And that leaves 90 as your whole amount. So 90 will go on the bottom of the first ratio. Okay, so here's your percent proportion. Now we solve it just like we do any other proportions. We're going to first see if we can use a scale factor. We're going to go from the known to the unknown. Can we go from 100 to 90? No, we can't do that. So we're going to have to simplify first. And that happens a lot, that we have to simplify the known ratio before we can use a scale factor. So our 30 to 100 is what we need to simplify. Hopefully you remember that if both numbers, the top and the bottom, end in a 0, we can cross them out, and that's the same as dividing each by 10. Now we have a 3 to 10 ratio. Can we turn 10 into a 90 with a scale factor? Sure, we do that by multiplying by 9. And then we're going to use the same scale factor with the 3 and multiply the 3 by 9. And 3 times 9 equals 27. So 27 is 30% of 90. Let's try another one. What is 20% of 25? So we're going to set up our proportion. We're not going to fill in any of the parts yet except for the 100%, because we know that will never change. That will always be 100. Now take a look at what the information you're given. What is 20%? So we're given the percent amount, 20, so that goes above the 100 because percent is out of 100. And are we told what the 20% amount is? No, that's what we're looking for, so that will be our n, our unknown amount. And then the 25 is going to represent your whole amount. So here is your proportion. n to 25 equals 20 out of 100. We're ready to solve. Can we use a scale factor and go from 100 to 25? Definitely. Think about quarters. We can divide the 100 by 4 to make 25. Use the same scale factor on the 20, and 20 divided by 4 is going to equal 5. So 5 is 20% of 25. What about when we're dealing with percents greater than 100? What is 150% of 44? Well, let's fill everything in. 150% is going to go above the 100% because it's the percent part out of the whole 100%. And this of 44. We're not told what the 150% amount is. That's what we're looking for. So that is your n. And the 44 is going to be your whole amount. So here's your percent proportion. Now let's solve it. Can we go from 100 to 44? No. So we're going to have to simplify first. And we can actually simplify both by dividing by 25. Think of quarters. How many quarters do you need to make $1.50? You need 6. How many quarters do you need to make 100? 4. Now can we go from 4 to 44? Yes. Multiply by a scale factor of 11. Do the same thing to the 6. And 11 times 6 is going to be 66. So 66 is 150% of 44. But wait a minute. 66 is greater than our whole amount. Is that possible? In this case, yes, because look at our percent. Our percent is 150%, and that's greater than 100%. So our part should also be greater than the whole. So yes, 66 does make sense. Okay, so let's try this with some practice word problems. 30% of the gumballs in a machine are pink. If there are 50 gumballs in the machine, how many of the gumballs are pink? Okay, fill in what you know. Okay, I know the percent is 30. So in the percent field, I'll put a 30. Okay, I know the whole. There are a total of 50 gumballs in the machine. So that's your whole amount. Because remember, your whole is your total. And then I'm looking for the number of pink. So the part is the unknown. This is your n, your variable n. Now I want to stop right here and I want to talk about this. Sometimes the problems try to trick you. You need to make sure that your part and your percent match. The part we're talking about is the pink part. Is the 30%, does that represent the pink? Well, yeah, 30% of the gumballs in the machine are pink. You need to make sure that both the percent and the part match. In this case, they do. So now we're ready to go ahead and set up our proportion. Okay, you're always going to have 100 over here. The percent is 30. Our part is n, and our whole is 50. That was really easy to set up once we had all of our numbers in place, once we had identified all of our parts. Okay, now we're ready to solve it. We're going to go from 100 to 50. Can we use a scale factor? Yes, divide it by 2. Use the same scale factor on the 30, and 30 divided by 2 is going to equal 15. So since this is a word problem, we need to have a simple answer statement. So you can say something like, there are 15 pink gumballs. Make sure you're doing all of these problems in your notes. You need to pause the video when needed so that you get everything written down. Okay, practice problem number 2. Marilyn saves 60% of the money she earns each month. She earns $350 each month. How much does she save? All right, start with what you know. We know the 60%. And what does the 60% represent? The money that she saves. Okay, then we know that she earns $350 each month, so that is your whole. And the part, we're looking for the part that she saves, so this is your n. And it represents the saved amount. Okay, do you remember what I said, that your part and your percent need to be the same, represent the same thing? Well, they do. They both represent the amount of money that she saved. So now we're ready to set up our percent proportion. So I'm going to take my part, put it over my whole. My percent is going to be 60, and that's always going to be over 100. There's our proportion. We're ready to solve. Can we go from 100 to 350? No. We're going to have to simplify. But lucky for us, they both end in a 0 over here, so we can cross them off. Can we go from 10 to 350? Yes, we can multiply by 35. We want to do the same thing to the 6. Multiply that by 35. If you need to do the math over on the side, you can. But your answer is going to be 210. That's what n is going to be. So write a quick little answer statement. She saves $210. Next problem. At the Children's Museum in Houston, 70% of the visitors are children. If 90 visitors are at the museum, how many of them are children? So let's fill in what we know. We know the percent is 70%. What does the 70% represent? It represents children. So I'm just going to write kids. Okay, then it says if there are 90 visitors, well, that's your whole amount, the 90. There are 90 visitors. And we're wanting to know how many are kids. So we're looking for the part. And the part that we want to find is the number of kids. Okay, does your part and your percent match? Do they represent the same thing? They both represent kids, so yes, they do. So set up your percent proportion. It's going to be the part, which is our unknown variable n, to whole, part of the whole, equals the percent, which is 70, and percent is always out of 100. There's the proportion. We're ready to solve. Can we use a scale factor to go from 100 to 90? No. So let's simplify. Again, we lucked out. They both end in a 0, so cross them off. Can we go from 10 to 90? Sure. We can do that by multiplying by 9. Use the same scale factor up here with the 7. Multiply it by 9, and 7 times 9 is 63. So your answer statement would be there are 63 children. And our last example. Ashton is saving money to buy a new bike. He needs $120 but has only saved 75% so far. How much more money does Ashton need to be able to buy the bike? So let's fill in what we know. We know that he needs $120 to buy the bike, so that is the whole amount. That's the total that he needs to buy the bike. And that he has saved 75%. So the 75 will go in the percent, and this is the amount that he has saved. Okay, and we're looking for the part. And what does the part represent? Well, it says how much more money Ashton needs. So this is more money. How much more money does he need? Okay, so remember, our part and our percent need to match. Do they represent the same thing? Well, the part is talking about how much more money he needs, and the percent is how much money he has already saved. So no, they don't match. So we need to look at this and change something. Can't really change how much more money he needs because that's what we're looking for. So we need to change this, the 75%. If you think about this, if he has already saved 75%, how much more percent does he need? Well, if he had the whole $120, then he would have the whole 100%. So if he's already saved 75%, then the rest of it is how much more he needs. So we would do 100% minus 75%, and that would give us 25%. He needs 25% more. So we're not going to use the 75% because that's the saved amount. We're going to use the 25%. Okay, now we're ready to set up a proportion. Part is the n to the whole, which is 120, is going to be the percent, which is 25%, not 75, out of 100. There's your percent proportion. Now you're ready to solve this. Okay, I cannot go from 100 to 120. I cannot do our quick little trick when they both have zeros because 25 does not end in a 0. So I'm going to have to think of another way to simplify this. Well, I know the factors for 25 are 5 times 5. So let me go ahead and do it that way. I'm going to simplify this by 5. 25 divided by 5 equals 5, and 100 divided by 5 equals 20. Now can I go from 20 to 120? Yes, we can multiply by a scale factor of 6. Use the same scale factor with the 5, and 6 times 5 is 30. So our answer statement, he needs $30. All right, go ahead and use your notes to help you do tonight's homework.